A sudden roar of steel on the border, a 25% tax that could slam every imported car into bankruptcy. Could this be the spark that ignites a continent-wide trade war? The auto world holds its breath as Washington's tariff threat hangs like a storm cloud over the Great Lakes. Canada's parliament, led by the fiery NDP champion Jagmeet Singh, is plotting a revenge strike, a full-scale 100% duty on every Tesla that rolls in from the United States, doubled when the cars are marketed as made in Canada. The proposal is paired with a $10,000 incentive for domestically built electric vehicles, a blend of protectionism and green ambition that smells of fresh pine forests and cold iron. If the measure passes, Tesla's sleek models could become luxury relics overnight, their price tag swelling as if wrapped in lead. What will Tesla do when faced with a tariff that could erase its profit margin? The company could rush to erect a new assembly line on Canadian soil, turning the tariff into a mere paperwork nuisance. It might dispatch lobbyists to the halls of Ottawa, hoping to soften the blow. Or Washington could intervene, pulling the reins on Trump's own 25% steel surcharge and urging a diplomatic retreat. Each option trembles with risk, as any heavy-handed response could trigger a cascade of retaliatory duties across North America, sending the supply chain into a chaotic dance of delayed shipments and rising costs. The stakes ripple far beyond boardrooms. Canadian consumers, eager for clean rides, may find themselves forced to choose between overpriced imports and a limited selection of locally produced models that are still years from mass production. Meanwhile, the United States watches nervously, aware that a full-blown tariff war could choke the flow of critical components, many of which originate in China's factories that already operate under a veil of hidden subsidies. As the drumbeat of tariffs grows louder, the question remains, will these policies accelerate the shift to electric mobility, or will they stall the global push toward a greener future? The next move on this geopolitical chessboard could reshape the entire automotive landscape. What if a single tax could make the whisper-quiet Tesla twice as expensive overnight? Canada's government is flirting with a 100% tariff on every Tesla that rolls onto its roads. The move, championed by the opposition party, pairs fierce environmental promises with a hard-nosed demand that foreign giants pay their fair share. It aims to force the electric car leader into a costly dilemma, while the country readies a $10,000 rebate for home-built EVs. Could this be the spark that ignites a new trade conflict across the continent? Building on that bold proposal, the conversation now turns to the ground beneath our wheels. Canada boasts vast lithium veins, rare metal deposits and roaring hydroelectric waterfalls that could feed a domestic battery industry. Yet the world's most profitable EV maker harvests massive gains without planting a single factory on Canadian soil. That imbalance fuels political fire, especially as Tesla's massive plant in China supplies many components that end up in North American models. Might the hidden subsidies from the East become the next battlefield? The specter of U.S. tariffs looms large over this resource tug-of-war. The current administration has warned that Chinese-origin parts will soon face steep duties, a threat that could cascade onto Tesla's supply chain. Every bolt and silicon chip that travels from Shanghai to Detroit may carry an extra cost, and Canada's own tariff threat could amplify that burden. As politicians trade accusations, the metal-clad arteries of the auto industry pulse with uncertainty. Will the combined pressure force Tesla to build a plant north of the border, or will it push the company into an even tighter knot of tariffs? Consumers feel the tremor of these high-stakes moves. A full-scale tax would likely send Tesla's price tag soaring, turning the dream of a sleek electric ride into a costly luxury for many Canadians. The promised $10,000 incentive might soften the blow, but only if enough locally produced models flood the market, something that could take years to materialize. Meanwhile, the ripple effects could reach factories in the United States and Mexico, inflating costs for every vehicle on the continent. As the trade storm gathers strength, will the electric vehicle revolution stall, or will a compromise emerge that keeps the roads quiet and the prices affordable? Previously we noted that Canadians embrace green policies yet still demand affordable electric cars. A 100% tariff could push Tesla's sleek rides into unaffordable territory, and the public's enthusiasm for converting to EVs might evaporate, undermining climate goals. What if a single tax could turn Tesla's futuristic dreams into a costly nightmare on every Canadian highway? Imagine the roar of engines silenced by a fiscal shockwave. When the government rolls out a $10,000 rebate, local EVs could finally feel within reach. Yet the market is far from flooded. General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis assemble vehicles on Canadian soil, but each plant remains an American venture. Volkswagen has announced a battery factory in Ontario. If construction finishes, homegrown power packs could appear, but that timeline stretches years ahead. In the near term, shoppers may face either a pricier Tesla or a limited selection of domestically built models. If the United States imposes its own tariffs, car and component costs there could surge, choking the cross-border supply chain. The intricate web-linking factories in the United States, Canada, and Mexico would strain, threatening brands such as Volkswagen, Toyota, and Honda. Broad protectionism would shake global trade volumes, prompting retaliatory measures worldwide. A slowdown in electric vehicle production and clean energy investment could follow, potentially handing advantage to competitors like China. Canada's 100% levy on Tesla is more than a reflexive shield for local politics. The NDP stance signals a dual pledge: champion green transformation while defending homegrown manufacturers from foreign behemoths. Yet the fallout may be paradoxical, raising prices, shrinking regional cooperation, and inviting a full-scale trade clash if Washington escalates tariffs. Even as the Liberal government hesitates, domestic pressure mounts to guard against U.S. giants. The looming shadow of American tariff threats forces Canada and its neighbors onto high alert. Could a compromise, perhaps a Canadian Tesla plant or reduced duty, defuse the tension? Or will the escalating fiscal war reshape the entire electric vehicle landscape? The next move will decide whether consumers pay the price or drive toward a greener horizon. In the landscape of North American trade, unease fills the air. Imagine a future where electric vehicles become prohibitively expensive as tariffs spiral out of control. With Canadian consumers caught in the crossfire, will their green ambitions crumble? The political stage is set with rising tensions, as those in power are pressured to safeguard their markets against heavyweights from the South. The upcoming decisions hold the potential for shocking consequences. As we delve deeper, the Trudeau administration is treading carefully. The Liberal Party hesitates to fan the flames of conflict with the American giants. However, there is escalating public demand for protective measures against imports, as whispers of Trump's tariffs loom ominously. Canada, alongside Mexico, finds itself on high alert, preparing for a potential trade war. Will this pressure lead to diplomatic measures, like Tesla establishing a Canadian manufacturing hub or seeing tariff reductions? Yet, even with potential compromises, the reality shaped by Trump's policies casts a long shadow. Global economic dynamics hang in the balance. If protectionism continues to rise, supply chains will falter, leaving consumers to bear the brunt of inflated prices. The trajectory of the electric vehicle revolution hinges on how tariffs and incentives unfold. If Canada's tax plan against Tesla is realized, the automaker's influence in the Canadian market could drastically diminish. Will Elon Musk respond by building a new factory in Canada? Or will negotiations keep the tariffs at manageable levels? Uncertainty shrouds the future. Yet Canada's tough stance signals that trade disputes are about to escalate. What are your thoughts? Is the proposed 100% tariff a prudent defensive strategy, or are we on the verge of a disaster for the electric vehicle industry? The answers may wind up shaping the continent's automotive landscape. Do you feel the pressure mounting? How will these complex negotiations conclude, and what will their fallout mean for the future of sustainable transportation? Join the discussion below and let's explore these implications together. Imagine a continent where a single tariff could double the price of a sleek, silent electric car overnight, sending shockwaves through factories, highways, and the very air we breathe. A 100% duty on one brand could turn optimism into panic, force governments to choose between green promises and the livelihoods of thousands, and spark a trade battle that could echo from the Great Lakes to the Pacific coast. Earlier we saw Canada's leaders proposing a $10,000 incentive for EVs built on home soil, while simultaneously demanding a full-scale tax on imported Teslas. On the surface the plan reads like a mix of protectionism and environmental zeal. Yet the political winds are shifting. The NDP argues that Canada must claim a larger slice of the clean energy revolution, accusing U.S. manufacturers of using tariff loopholes and sheer scale to choke domestic rivals. They weave carbon-cutting goals together with a nationalist chorus that shouts, "Save the planet, but keep our jobs safe." The scent of fresh-cut steel mingles with the hum of assembly lines as the debate intensifies, and the question hangs heavy: will this bold move lift Canadian producers or simply stall the electric car surge at a critical moment? If the 100% levy passes, Tesla's showroom prices in Canada would soar, making the brand far less tempting to buyers. The company could answer by building a new plant on Canadian soil, lobbying fiercely against the law, or hoping the United States steps in to temper the measure. Each option carries its own risk, like a tightrope stretched over a canyon of trade tension. Imposing such a heavy tax could become Canada's trump card against perceived U.S. aggression, a warning that any tariff on Canadian autos will be met with equally fierce retaliation. The North American auto supply chain is a tangled web of parts drifting back and forth across borders. A sudden surge in duties would raise production costs, freeze new investments, and push consumer prices upward. Will this fiscal gamble ignite a broader trade war that throttles the electric vehicle rollout just as the world races away from fossil fuels, or will it force a diplomatic bargain that reshapes the industry's future? The answer remains hidden behind the clang of factories and the distant roar of engines waiting to decide. Previously we noted the NDP's push for a $10,000 rebate on Canadian-built EVs, a move that blends green ambition with protectionist instinct. But why does this matter now? What if the price of a sleek electric car suddenly doubled overnight? The answer hides behind a looming tariff storm. A 100% duty on Tesla could turn the brand's Canadian prices into a nightmare. Imagine the roar of assembly lines in California, Nevada, Texas, and a massive gigafactory in China, suddenly muffled by the cold clang of trade barriers. The NDP claims Canada must claim a bigger slice of the clean energy revolution, accusing U.S. giants of exploiting tariff loopholes and economies of scale to crush local rivals. Their pitch mixes carbon-cut promises with a nationalist rally: bring in clean vehicles, protect Canadian workers. If the tariff passes, Tesla's sticker price in Canada could explode, making the cars far less attractive to shoppers. Tesla could react in three ways: build a plant on Canadian soil to dodge the duty, lobby fiercely against the bill, or hope Washington steps in to temper the measure. Each path is fraught with diplomatic friction, because a 100% tax on an American company becomes a bold countercard against perceived U.S. trade aggression. The NDP essentially says, if you hit our auto sector, we'll hit yours. The North American supply chain shivers at that threat. Parts whiz back and forth across borders like steel humming in a furnace, while workers feel the tremor of uncertainty. Will the tariff spark a tit-for-tat spiral that rattles factories from Detroit to Vancouver? Yesterday's tension built on the idea of a $10,000 incentive, but today the stakes have erupted. Imagine the metallic scent of fresh-cut aluminum mingling with the acrid smell of heated politics. A 25% U.S. tariff on incoming steel already looms, and now Canada eyes a full-scale penalty on Tesla. If both sides unleash high duties, production costs will surge, investment will stall, and prices for consumers will climb, potentially choking the momentum of EV adoption just as the world strives to abandon fossil fuels. Protectionist moves could inject volatility into markets, turning the clean energy transition into a precarious gamble. Canada, rich in lithium, rare metals, and hydropower, hopes to lure giants like Tesla into domestic factories, turning raw material abundance into jobs and tax revenue. Meanwhile, Tesla's Chinese gigafactory feeds parts into North America, and a U.S. tariff on Chinese components, promised by the Trump administration, could further strangle the supply chain. The question now hangs like static in the air: will Canadian consumers be forced to choose between overpriced imports and a limited selection of locally produced EVs, or will diplomatic whispers coax Tesla into building a Canadian plant? The answer will shape not only the auto market but the entire trajectory of the green revolution across the continent.